Prepare now for the market going up. Prepare now for the market going down. Prepare now for your volume staying steady, going up or going down. Prepare for the unpredictable. Prepare for whatever may come our way.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast.
Minisode.
Welcome back to the most listened to appraisal-related podcast in the world. The podcast with over 500 episodes and almost, 1 million downloads. This is the Appraiser Coach Podcast. My name is Dustin Harris. I'm your host. Today's episode, we're going to talk about predictions. We're going to talk about fantasies. We're going to talk about prophecies. We're going to talk about soothsayers. We're going to be talking about crystal balls and things that we really don't have any business predicting. But nonetheless, it's a question that I get quite often, both as a coach and as an appraiser. In fact, quite frequently, I get this question while I'm in the home doing an inspection. I get this question while I'm on my coaching calls. And specifically, my clients want to know what's going to happen. I want to plan ahead. Dustin, what's going to happen? Well, I'm going to tell you today exactly what's going to happen. But first, I want to pause here. Remind you that we are sponsored by ANOW Software. ANOW, of course, well, it's the software that I am using every day to manage my appraisal office. What does it mean to manage? I'm going to tell you about it. But first, you can go to anow.com for more information. That's anow.com for more information about how I manage and take care of my appraisal office. All right, folks, it's a question that I get quite often. What's going to happen, Dustin? What's going to happen? It's a question that has increased, not decreased, since the coronavirus pandemic hit the world. It is quite frequently that I am in a home doing an inspection, and at the end of the inspection, I always ask, do you have any questions for me? Sometimes they ask, well, what do you think my house is worth? Sometimes they ask, are there any things I need to fix? Sometimes they ask, what is the economy going to do? As if I, as an appraiser, am all-knowing, all-prophesying, and typically I run out to my car, I pull out of my trunk my crystal ball, I do my seances, and probably that's not the right word for that, and, and head back in and tell them, I don't know. It depends. It depends on so much. All right, folks, let's start, first of all, with what we do know. What do we know? Well, we know that before the pandemic, so we're talking February-ish of 2020, the housing market across the United States, and yea, even most places in the world, was the highest that it had ever been. Interest rates were quite low, but not the lowest, not the record-breaking lows that we've seen in the past. But it wasn't bad. And we saw some refinancing going on. We saw some purchasing going on. In fact, 2019 was the best year that I have ever had as a real estate appraiser. And folks, keep in mind, at that point, I had been in business 23 years, now in business just over 24 years. And I remember, in fact, I don't even have to remember. I can go back to the notes from my staff meetings of June of 2019 and telling my appraisers and my office colleagues, folks, put away the nuts for the winter because this will not last. This is typical. It's June, and things get busy in June. And they pick up in July, and they pick up even more in August. And if statistics play out as they have historically, plan on, September, October, November, and especially you get into Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's. And, folks, historically, things have constantly gone down. If I look back on my statistics, those are historically the slowest months. Now, that's not always true. I don't remember which year it was, but several years ago, January happened to be our busiest month of the entire year. But, nonetheless, most of the time you can plan on a pretty good slowdown in the Wyoming, Utah, Idaho area that I work. And my reminder to each of my employees was, listen, this will not last. Make sure you're putting away at least 10% in a savings account so that when things do slow down, you're not in trouble. And I have learned the hard way over the years to do that myself. I was wrong. I was dead wrong because we continued to pick up in July, August, normal. September, not so normal. October, definitely not normal. November, December, unheard of. January, February, March. We continued to pick up. Every month was better than the last. So in 2019, folks, we had one of the best the best years, rather. In fact, it wasn't one of, it was the best year we had ever had as a real estate firm. Ever. Now, did things slow down? Not at all. In fact, each month, starting in January of 2020, each month has been better than the last. I think there might have been one exception, but it was like nip and tuck. It was within the margin of error. And as you look at statistics, as you analyze what has happened over the last, half a year, 3/4 of a year, it's been absolutely amazing to watch. Now, that's what we know. Interest rates were low. They were not the lowest ever, but we had a refi boom going on. People were refiing, and I'm talking about people that had refied a year, 18 months, 2 years previously. I can't tell you how many times I have been in the same home doing the same dumb thing and even had the funny conversation with the homeowner. Well, here I am again, and them saying something to the effect of, yeah, I really didn't expect you to be out so soon, but hey, I can't help it. If interest rates are down 1.5 below what I refinanced 18 months ago at, why not? And of course, the answer to why not is, yeah, why not? By the way, how do I know of those statistics? How would I know that each month is better than the last? How do I know that 2019 was my best year ever? Well, folks, it is so simple, so easy, it would make your head spin with ANow software. ANow allows me to click on this little thing called the Analytics tab. Now, the Analytics tab is quite easy to use. You go there, you click on certain things, you can look at stats per appraiser, you can look at stats per order type, you can look at stats per client, and you can just look at overall stats. And I'm telling you, folks, I can look at overall revenue, both they have two different levels. You can do created and completed, okay? So you can look at it two different ways. If you're looking at, hey, I started this appraisal in August, but I didn't finish it until September 3rd, well, that would be in the completed tab and not in the created tab. So if you want to know how many new orders came in, you're going to click on created. If you want to click on how many or know how many appraisals were turned in for full fees, that would be the completed tab. It's so easy with ANow, folks. If you are not using ANow, trust me on this, please. You need to be. ANow software will change the game when it comes to your appraisal world, when it comes to your appraisal office. Check them out. Go to ANOW. I'm going to spell that for you. Ready? ANOW.com. It's ANow.com. All right. Well, welcome back, folks. We're talking today about predictions. We're talking about getting out my crystal ball. What is going to happen? I've already talked today about what has happened. Facts we know, right? The housing market was at the top, record-breaking housing market, say January, February of 2020. And then along came a little spider and dropped down beside her, and that little spider was called COVID-19. And pandemic has absolutely changed the game in so many ways. It's changed the way that we do inspections, gather data. It's changed so many things. Now, let me just be real with you for a moment, okay? This episode is an absolute, and I probably shouldn't have waited for 8 minutes into the episode to tell you this, but this episode is an absolute waste of time for you, okay? Here's why. I know. I should have told you up front. I have no clue. The bottom line is I have no clue. Now, I'm going to tell you some things that are real, and I'm going to tell you some things that are facts, and I'm going to tell you some things that you can think about. But the bottom line is none of us know. You're talking to a clown with a microphone, a guy that in 2009 wrote a blog post for my appraisal website, and I think the title of that blog post was "How and Why the Housing Bubble Will Never Burst in Idaho." Yeah, embarrassment. I had no clue, folks. And by the way, I had tons of support for my blog post. I had tons of support for my stance. My idea was that Idaho was somewhat sheltered from what was going on in the nation, and that it really would not hit us the way that it had. And it didn't, by the way. It didn't hit us the way that it hit Southern California and Florida and Arizona and Vegas and so many others, right? But it still hit us. In other words, my predictions are bunk. And I'll just flat out tell you that up front. However, I think it's important to understand a couple of things. Where are we as of this recording? And by the way, we're nearing the end of summer as of this recording and beginning fall and back to school, whatever that means this year. So what does it mean for the housing market long term? Well, folks, I believe there's a lot of speculation out there. I believe that you can probably go to any guru out there with regard to the housing market, and everyone is going to tell you something different. However, I think it's important to know a couple of things. First of all, interest rates are predicted, flat out almost guaranteed, to stay low long term. Okay? The 10-year T-notes are staying below 1%, at least for a while. We know that. Freddie and Fannie have talked about the fact that if anything, by the end of the year, we're talking 2020 here, that interest rates are possibly, I know this sounds almost impossible, but it is possible that interest rates may actually drop even further than they are now, and we are right now at historic lows, okay? However, that is not the only predictor. And if you're looking at your appraisal business and you're saying, okay, Dustin, we base our productivity, we base our volume off of both refinances and purchases. By the way, in our office, it's typically a 40-60 split. So refinances are about 60% and purchases typically, depending on the year, but take on in about 40%. Well, that's not, because you've got to factor in personal appraisals and such. But as far as lending goes, that's about the ratio. This year, complete opposite. About 60% of what we're doing is purchases, about 40% are refinances. But it's keeping us hopping. It's keeping us busy. And by the way, by the end, and I know this by just looking at ANOW software, by the end of July 2020, we had actually reached and surpassed our 2019 gross for the entire year. Yes, you heard me right. 7 months into 2020, we are as high, yea, higher in volume and revenue than we were in all of 2019 combined, which was, as I mentioned earlier, a record-breaking year. Folks, I don't know how your volume is. I don't even know if you don't have ANOW software, but let's say you do. Folks, it's been a good year. By all accounts, it's been a good year. And interest rates are only predicted to go down, but what does that mean? Well, I think you need to look at inventory. I think you need to look at building. I think you need to look at your local markets to know, or at least have an inkling on what's going to happen moving forward. Just because interest rates are low and cash is easy to get doesn't mean, well, it doesn't mean, first of all, that there's the volume out there to buy anything with. It doesn't mean that people are not, quote unquote, refinanced out. I talked to you earlier about this process that I've seen play out multiple times a week, where I'm in the same home that I've been in a year, year and a half, 2 years earlier, and people are refinancing. Now, will interest rates drop lower? Yes, but folks, come on. We're in the twos right now. How much further down the line can you possibly get, right? And I know, knock on wood, I know people were saying that at 4 and again at 3. How low can we go? And yet here we are in the twos. Is it possible to get into the ones? I don't know. I can tell you that my wife and I have not refinanced yet. Now, there's a reason for that. It's not that we think the interest rates are going to go lower and we should hold out. It's the fact that we're going to have our home paid off in the next 4 to 6 years anyway. And so is it really worth refinancing and put, $5,000-$6,000 into that refinance when we're paying about double right now what our mortgage is anyway? So there's this idea of at least for us, it may not be the thing to do, although we're considering it. And I think many people out there want access to money, and there's many other things at play here. It's not just about the housing market. It's not just about refinancing to get a lower interest rate. It's also about money, and money is cheap right now, and it's easy to get that money, and there are many other reasons to get money. People have closed their restaurants, and they're opening up new businesses. People have switched the way that they make money because of the pandemic, and now they need access to equity, and sometimes that is done through refinance or home equity loans or what have you. Many of the big banks, we need to consider this, have cracked down on HELOCs, have cracked down on some of the other things that are happening. So what do we know? Well, folks, there's a few things that we do know, some things that are facts, right? We know what interest rates are currently. We know what they were before the pandemic. We know what our volume was back in February. We know what the housing market looked like back in February, and we know what it looks like now. However, and I want to make this very clear, if I haven't done so already, we really don't know what's going to happen. Okay, Dustin, so what's the lesson? Well, folks, that is the lesson. The lesson is we don't know. We don't know what we don't know, and what we don't know is that we don't know what the market's going to do by the end of 2020. And I hope I have not deceived you by the title of this podcast, but I tried to make it very clear up front that we're talking about predictions that, let's be honest with you, none of us can make. Even the experts are going to be wrong. And those that are right, well, remember, a clock, even a dead one, is right at least twice a day. So here's the thought that I want to leave you with. Prepare now for whatever. Prepare now for the future. Well, Dustin, I thought you said you don't know the future. Exactly. I don't. So you prepare now for whatever. Prepare now for the market going up. Prepare now for the market going down. Prepare now for your volume staying steady, going up or going down. Prepare for the unpredictable. Prepare for whatever may come our way. What does that mean? Well, I continue to put away 10% of everything that I earn into a quote-unquote slush fund. I continue to pay my taxes on the day that I receive the check. I continue to distribute in equal amounts to, not equal amounts, but percentages rather, to the different buckets, if you will. I use the profits first system. Continue to prepare financially for whatever. Now, many of you are asking the question, Dustin, should I invest in technology? The answer is yes. Should I invest in human resources? The answer is yes. Labor is cheap right now. There's a lot of people out of work. There's people that want to work, despite what you hear on the news. Okay, they're not just sitting back and collecting unemployment. Some of them are, but not all of them. There are people that want jobs. There are people that can work from home, and technology can allow us to do so. I'm not holding back. I hired 2 new people in the last 2 weeks, and we're in the process of training and bringing them up through the ranks. And some would say, well, Dustin, you don't even have capacity for more human resources. And I say, we have capacity for growth. We continue to grow. We continue to turn down volume, and we want to continue to grow and develop and be successful. That is the lesson today. Whatever may happen, prepare. You may have to let people go. You may have to cut back. But right now, I'm planning on growth. Speaking of growth, if you would like to continue to grow your business, I want to encourage you to take a look at 2 different courses that I have available on my website. Go to theappraisercoach.com, click on products, and there are 2 courses that I think will be a great help for you if you have not taken them already. Number 1 is called the Go Create Some Value Workshop, and number 2 is called the Go Remodel Your Appraisal Workshop. I promise you folks, these will give you all kinds of ideas that can help you to handle the volume that's coming at you right now. Thank you for being a part of this great experience. I hope your business continues to thrive, and I appreciate being even a small part of your incredible success.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.